Section 1, Cold Open, midnight to 0:15. February 1, 2013. A Georgia high school gymnasium. A body folded into a position no accident could explain. I've reviewed hundreds of case files. This one made me stop reading and check the date, because I didn't believe what I was looking at could happen in modern America. The question I still can't answer: how does a young man drown without water in his lungs? Section 2, Case File Briefing, 0:15 to 1:30. I pulled Case File 2013-0547 from the Lowndes County Sheriff's Office. Filed February 2, 2013. Location, Lowndes High School, Valdosta, Georgia. Victim, Kendrick Johnson, age 21. African American male. Student. Athlete. The initial incident report is barely 2 pages. It describes the discovery of a body in the old gymnasium, auxiliary space used primarily for storage and overflow during wrestling practice. The body was found inside a vertically stored gym mat, positioned upside down. Cause of death, according to the Georgia Bureau of Investigation, positional asphyxia. Accidental. The file was closed within months. But attached to this file are 3 subsequent investigation reports. A private autopsy commissioned by the family. An inquiry by the U.S. Department of Justice. And a 2021 re-examination ordered by a federal judge. 3 investigations. 3 different conclusions. And a family that has spent over a decade saying what I found myself thinking when I first read this file: none of this makes sense. The Lowndes County Sheriff stated publicly that this was a tragic accident. A boy reaching for his shoe, falling into a mat, unable to free himself. I've read the evidence. I've seen the photographs. And I need to walk you through exactly what investigators found that morning, because something is very wrong with that explanation. Section 3, The Scene, 1:30 to 3 o'clock. January 10, 2013. 3 weeks before Kendrick's death. Students report seeing him enter the old gymnasium during a class transition. This was common. Students used the space as a shortcut, a place to store personal belongings, a place to avoid being seen. February 1, 2013. 1:30 p.m. A student in the gymnasium notices an unusual smell. It had been present for days, but on this afternoon, it was unbearable. School officials are notified. They trace the odor to a cluster of large wrestling mats stored vertically against the wall, 6 feet tall, rolled into cylinders approximately 14 inches in diameter. Inside one of those mats, they find Kendrick Johnson. He is upside down. His feet are near the top opening of the mat. His head is at the bottom. His arms are pinned at his sides. His face is swollen beyond recognition. Mini revelation, 45-second mark. Here is the detail that stopped me cold: the mat's internal diameter was measured at 14.5 inches. Kendrick Johnson's shoulders measured 19 inches across. The official theory requires us to believe he voluntarily dove headfirst into an opening 4.5 inches narrower than his own body, and could not push himself back out. First responders photographed the scene. The images are difficult to look at. Kendrick's face shows signs of severe trauma, swelling, discoloration, what appears to be bruising around both eyes and jaw. The GBI's position: this was caused by blood pooling after death, consistent with his inverted position. But I've seen the photographs. And I've read what the second medical examiner found. Section 4, The Evidence, 3 to 5 o'clock. The Georgia Bureau of Investigation conducted the initial autopsy on February 4, 2013. Their findings: positional asphyxia. Kendrick suffocated due to chest compression while trapped upside down in the mat. No drugs. No alcohol. No sign of struggle. But there was one problem. When an independent forensic pathologist examined Kendrick's body 4 months later, he found almost no fluid in the lungs. Positional asphyxia typically presents with pulmonary edema, fluid buildup caused by the heart's struggle to pump blood against gravity. Kendrick's lungs were nearly dry. The independent examiner also documented injuries the GBI report did not mention: a 2 by 3 inch area of bruising on the right side of Kendrick's neck. An area of hemorrhaging near the carotid artery. Compression marks on the throat. His conclusion: blunt force trauma to the neck. Homicide. Ari Hook, 2 o'clock mark. And this is where the case stops making sense entirely. When the independent pathologist opened Kendrick Johnson's body for the second autopsy, 4 months after his death, he discovered that his internal organs were missing. His heart. His lungs. His liver. His brain. All gone. In their place, newspaper. Kendrick Johnson's organs had been removed and his body cavity stuffed with old newspaper. The funeral home responsible claimed this was standard practice when organs were too decomposed to preserve. The family had never been told. The organs, which could have provided definitive evidence of cause of death, were never found. I want you to understand what this means. The single most important pieces of physical evidence in this case were removed, discarded, and replaced with garbage before any independent examination could occur. Section 5, Witness Statements, 5 to 7 o'clock. I pulled every witness statement in the supplemental file. Over 100 students and staff were interviewed in the weeks following Kendrick's discovery. Several students reported seeing Kendrick enter the gymnasium on January 10. Multiple witnesses placed him there between 1 o'clock and 1:30 p.m. But here is what caught my attention: at least 3 students reported seeing Kendrick with another person shortly before he was last seen alive. One witness described 2 male students near the gym mats. Another reported hearing what sounded like an argument. None of these witnesses were re-interviewed when the case was briefly reopened. He was real particular about his shoes, one classmate told investigators. Kendrick owned multiple pairs of expensive sneakers. He was known for it. The official theory suggests he climbed into the mat to retrieve a shoe he had stored inside, a habit some students confirmed. But another student gave a statement that contradicts this entirely: nobody put shoes in those mats. We kept our stuff in the locker room. Pattern interrupt, witness contradiction. The most troubling witness statement came from a student interviewed 3 years later during a federal review. This student claimed to have seen Kendrick in an altercation with 2 other students the week before his death. The student named names. Those names were redacted in a public file. I cannot legally share them. But I can tell you this: the 2 students named had connections to local law enforcement. And when federal investigators finally gained access to the full unredacted witness list, they found that crucial early interviews had never been recorded. Section 6, The Timeline, 7 to 9 o'clock. I reconstructed Kendrick's final movements from 3 sources: school attendance records, witness statements, and surveillance footage. January 11, 2013. 12:58 p.m. Kendrick leaves his 4th period class. He is captured on camera walking toward the gymnasium. 1:09 p.m. He enters a hallway near the old gymnasium. The camera captures him walking alone. 1:10 p.m. The footage ends. Pattern interrupt, timeline breakdown. For the next 90 minutes, there is no footage. The surveillance system recorded onto a continuous loop, but the segment from 1:10 p.m. to approximately 2:35 p.m. is missing. The Lowndes County Sheriff's Office stated this was a technical glitch. The cameras were motion activated and simply did not record because no motion occurred. But the gymnasium was in use that day. Students were present. Teachers passed through. The federal investigation later noted that the missing footage covered exactly the window during which Kendrick must have died. At 2:38 p.m., the cameras resume. The footage shows students walking past the gymnasium. No one enters. No one exits. Kendrick's body would not be discovered for nearly 3 weeks. I've reviewed the camera placement. There were 36 cameras throughout Lowndes High School. At least 4 had clear sight lines to the old gymnasium entrance. Every single one shows the same 90-minute gap. Section 7, The Theory, 9 to 11 o'clock. The official theory, as stated by the Lowndes County Sheriff and the GBI, goes like this. Kendrick Johnson entered the gymnasium alone during the lunch period. He spotted a rolled gym mat where he had previously stored a pair of shoes. He climbed onto a stack of nearby mats to reach inside the vertical mat. He dove in head first, compressing his body through an opening narrower than his shoulders. He could not reach the shoe. He could not push himself back out. He suffocated over the next several minutes. No foul play. No one else involved. Tragic accident. But this theory cannot explain why there was almost no fluid in his lungs. Why an independent medical examiner found blunt force trauma to his neck. Why his organs were removed and destroyed before any outside review. Why 90 minutes of surveillance footage from 36 cameras all show the same gap. Why multiple witnesses placed other students with him shortly before his disappearance. Why the 2 students named in later interviews were never formally investigated. In 2016, the U.S. Department of Justice closed their investigation without bringing charges. They cited insufficient evidence. In 2021, a federal judge ordered the case reopened. New interviews were conducted. New forensic analysis was requested. In 2022, the new investigation also closed. Same conclusion, insufficient evidence. Kendrick Johnson's parents have filed over a dozen motions, civil suits, and public appeals. They have been countersued for defamation. They have been threatened. They have never stopped. Section 8, Case Status, 11:00 end. I closed this file an hour ago. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. A 21-year-old student goes to school one morning and never comes home. His body is found in a position that defies explanation. The physical evidence contradicts the official cause of death. The surveillance footage has gaps that precisely match the timeline of his death. The organs that could have answered every question were removed and thrown away. And 3 separate investigations have concluded that there is nothing more to find. I don't know what happened to Kendrick Johnson. I don't know who, if anyone, was responsible. But I know what this file tells me: the official story is not complete. Case status, disputed, officially closed. This case file remains in my active review. There are people still fighting to reopen it. And there are questions that, 10 years later, no one has been able to answer. I'm pulling another file next week. A case with evidence that made investigators refuse to sign their own reports. You'll want to be there when I open it.